Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Colonial Downs here on Millions Day. It is Saturday, the 9th of August, 2025. It's Arlington Millions Day, and I'm going to look at the Arlington Million, all the other stakes races on the program from Colonial. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kit 5 for more selections for race courses around the world, and I mean it around the world. Let's look at the stakes action races 5 through 11. So quite a few races to look at. The fifth race from Colonial, we're starting on the dirt with the Petramalo Mile. It's going for a purse of $100,000 race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 9 horses going 1,600 meters of the one-turn mile. I'm going to go take the 4-horse Flood Zone. We're going to go 4-6-5-8 in the superfecta. 4-6-5-8 super. Top selection of 4-horse Flood Zone. This 3-year-old colt by Frosted. Brad Cox trains. Raylu Gutierrez gets the mount. The horse's most recent appearance came on the 29th of June at Churchill, 7 furlongs in the Maxfield Stakes, and he finished 7 by 12 lengths. And he just wasn't into it. He normally shows pace, but that day off the bench, he didn't. He was way out of it, and he just, crawled home. It wasn't his day to win. He needed the race off the bench. A refreshment here, second off the bench, a little lesser quality of horses. He's going to be in a better spot to win. He ran two back in the UAE Derby at Meydan, a mile 3/16, 5th of April. Finished 7 by 17 lengths that day. He was very overbet, I thought, in the stateside odds. That day he just, snapped back early and just never, was into it, weakened out of it. Just asking too much too soon that day. It wasn't the world's toughest Gotham at Aqueduct over the one-turn mile in early March, which he won by 3.5 lengths. He had a dream tracking trip on the front end. Sand Devil looked like he was going to catch him, but he had enough left in the tank to get the job done. First tire in the in the Cox barn. I thought it was a very good race. Vic Barboza was a previous trainer in South Florida for this one, and he was running good. He placed on debut late December at Gulfstream against State Bred main special weights. Came back to run earlier in the year at Gulfstream, going 6.5 in that State Bred main special weight, where he won by 5.5 lengths, really taking home clear. Coming here, lesser quality horses, training well Churchill. I think he's a very likely winner. To recount my selection now for the fifth from Colonial, it's the Petramalo Mile. Going to take the 4-horse Flood Zone. We're going to go 4-6-5-8 in the superfecta. The sixth race from Colonial, it's the Tyson Gilpin Stakes. It's going for a purse of $100,000 race for 3-year-old fillies. The 11 horses are going 1,400 meters or 7 furlongs on the dirt course with this one. Going to go to the rail to the 1-horse GW's Girl. I'm going to go 1-6-2-3 in the superfecta. 1-6-2-3 super. Top selection 1-horse GW's Girl. 3-year-old Philip Munnings. Greg Compton trains. Jamie Rodriguez gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the Miss Preakness Stakes at Pimlico. 6 furlongs on the 16th of May. And he finished 4th by 5.25 lengths that day. It has pace, but just lost it all at the beginning of the race because he stumbled out of the gate, which cost him. He was drifting out in the lane. It just wasn't a recipe for success. I think cutting here off the bench to 7 furlongs for the first time in a bit of time, I think he's going to be in a better spot to win. He ran two back in the Beaumont over this about 7 at Keelan. Those about 7 furlong races are closer to about 7.5 a mile, so I just keep that in mind. But he finished 4th by 23.5 lengths that day, and he was wide, just never getting into it. I don't think he liked the slop that day. And then the Dixie Belle at Churchill at Oakland over the 6 back in February. Went by 2 3/4 lengths that day, basically on the front and all throughout. He was a little bit wide, but he flew home clear. Before then, the Mockingbird at Oakland over the 6, he won by length. And again, closing it from the back of the pack, he was wide, but he came home terrifically. Coming here, a little lesser quality horses, training well at Delaware's most recent outings. I'm going to give him a shot on the ticket. But to recount my selection for the 6 from Colonial, it's a Tyson Gilpin Stakes. Going to take the 1-horse GW's Girl. We're going to go 1-6-2-3 in the superfecta. The 7th event from Colonial, it is the Andy Guest Stakes. It's going for a $150,000 purse race for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 10 horses going to the inner turf course, the 1,100-meter journey, or 5.5 furlongs on the inner turf course. Going to take the number 5 horse here, who is Crown Imperial. We're going to go 5-2-3-1 in the superfecta. 5-2-3-1 super. Top selection 5-horse Crown Imperial. This 4-year-old filly by Classic Empire. John Ortiz trains. Ben Curtis gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Clarksville Stakes in Indiana. 5 furlongs, 4th of July, and he finished 3rd by 3 lengths that day. She sat back early. She was a bit wide in the lane, but she was gaining some ground. I didn't think it was a half better race. I do think with the extra half furlong off her previous race, that's really going to set her well to get a good trip in the back of the pack to get the job done. She ran two back and optional 100 at Churchill, 5.5 on the 23rd of May, and she finished fourth by 3 3/4 lengths that day. And she was with him early on. She just couldn't keep up late. The winner had the jump on her, but they did disqualify the winner, so she was actually placed third due to disqualification. But she just couldn't get there late. And then the unbridled Sydney Churchill, 5.5 on the 2nd of May. She had a very good place by 3.5 lengths that day. She was stupidly wide. She was with the pace that day. She just couldn't catch the winner who had the jump on her, but she ran her heart out. And then off the bench going 5.5 in an allowance race, winning by a head on the front and all throughout. I thought that was a very good race. Coming back here, back and trip, something that she's wanted was turf sprinting. And since she's come back to turf sprinting, her numbers have definitely been up to par. Training well, Churchill 9-2. I'm going to use her on the ticket. But to recap my selection now for the seventh from Colonial, it's the Andy Guest. We're going to take the 5 horse Plan Imperial 5-2-3-1 for me in the superfecta. The eighth event's now from Colonial. It's the Van Clief Stakes. It's going for a purse of $150,000, raised for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 13 horses going 1,100 meters or 5.5 furlongs on the Colonial outer turf course. Rails are out at 60 feet for the outer turf course races today. My top selection here, I'm going to go with the number 6 horse, Step Forward. We're going to go 6-11-5-12 in the superfecta. 6-11-5-12 super. Top selection, 6 horse. Step Forward, this 6-year-old going by Spystown. Mark Cassie trains. Michael Sanchez gets the mount. Horse's most recent outing, 5th of July, Saratoga, 5.5 on the Melon, option 75 claimer, and he finished second by a nose that day. And they were dueling on the front end. He just couldn't catch the winner late, who just outpaced him, but he got down the race course well. Not a bad race in the feet. Coming here, a very good post stroke, be fairly paced. Not the world's deepest event. I think he get the job done. He ran two back on the 6th of June at Saratoga, 5.5 on the Melon option 5, and he finished eighth by 4 lengths that day. Not getting out of the gate so clearly cost him. Also was off the bench. He needed the race. He was just a bit flat that day. And then at Santita, 6.5 down the hillside turf course in the Eddie D last fall. He finished 11 by 13.5 lengths that day. He was very wide and just didn't show up. That came up a very tough race last year. And plus also of a quick turnaround. I think you saw a very tired horse. He's at the end of the campaign last year. He ran quite a few times. He ran the 20th of July, came back to run August 10th, September 1st, and then September 28th in 3 different states. California, Kentucky Downs, and Saratoga last fall. His best race last fall was actually in the Troy off the turf at Saratoga going 5.5, where he had a decent third place finish. He was a little bit wide, but he was gaining some ground. But his turf numbers have been up to par. Coming here at 6-1, I think he's a very likely winner. I think the 11 horse here, who is nothing better for Luis Saez and Jorge Duarte, can win also. He ran off the bench in the Wolf Hill Monmouth a few weeks ago. Ran a decent place that day. He ran the elusive quality in early May at Aqueduct, where he needed the race off the bench. Coming here to Colonial for the second time, he had a very good place in the Haas Stakes back here last fall. I'm going to give him a shot on the ticket, but to recap my selection for the eighth from Colonial, it's Van Cleef. We're going to take the 6 horse, Step Forward, give kudos to the 11 horse, nothing better. 6-11-5-12 super, 6-11 in the multi race. The ninth race from Colonial now at the OG Arlington races. It is the Secretariat Stakes. It's a grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse, race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 8 horses going 1,600 meters or a mile here in the Secretariat. I'm not sure why. If I would have done it, my idea, if I would have did it, was last fall they announced the Virginia Derby is going to move from late September to early March and going to be moved from turf to dirt, and they're just going to rename the old Virginia Derby. I think they named it now like the Old Dominion Derby. I wouldn't have done that. I would have actually moved the Secretariat Stakes from today and moved it to early September and brought it back to like a mile and a quarter, but and brought it back to its glory. But that's the Colonial had other ideas, but still like the race, still a good one. I'm gonna go with the number 8 horse here, Dream On, in the top selection. I'm gonna go 8-4-3-7 in the superfecta. 8-4-3-7 super, top selection, 8 horse Dream On. This 3-year-old colt by not this time. Mark Cassie trains. Javier Castellano gets the mounts. They ran the horse most recently on the 27th of June at Penn National, a mile and quite yielding ground in the Penn Mile. And he won by a length that day, and he sat back early. Took some time to get going that day. But when he finally did, he came home clear. That was a very good race. He's refreshed me here back to a mile, training well, quite well locally. I'm getting him a shot here on the ticket. He ran two back in the Woodhaven at Aqueduct, 1 mile in a turf course, 26th of April, and he won by a neck that day. And he tracked all the way around the race course. When he said go Javier, he came home clear. That was a very good race. They tried him on the turf in the Columbia prior to that at Tampa over the mile, where he finished fifth by 12.5 lengths that day, and he was very, very wide, which cost him. Just going through his running cycles, when Javier rides him, that's when they get the best out of this horse. He won a very nice optional 75 at Gulfstream back in January. One with him in the Woodhaven and one with him in the Penn Mile. Getting Javier back up, coming down south to ride him, I think that's a good idea. I think he's a very loaded horse for this race. I think the four-horse simulate for Junior Alvarado and Bill Montcoin also. He ran most recently at Saratoga on the 18th of July, mile 16th, and an optional 100 claim for open company. Won by 2.5 lengths from a dream dragging trip. He was wide, but he came home clear. That was a very, very good, impressive race. He had White Bossier at Delaware going mile 16th prior to mid-June, where he finished fourth by 7.5 lengths, where it was wide, and I just think you need the race off the bench. But he found a good, fight back in the in his sophomore outing at Saratoga last summer, where he came home very, very good on the front end. He's training well at Saratoga. Coming here against some little lesser, little tougher quality horses. I'm getting him a shot here at 8 to 1. I do think his price can actually lower here. I don't think he's going to go off at 8 to 1. I think he's going to run somewhere 9 to 2, but we'll see up post. But to recap my selection now for the ninth from Colonial, it is the Secretariat. Going to take the 8-horse Dream On. Give kudos to the 4-horse Simulate, 8-4-3-7 Super, 8-4 in the multi-race. The 10th race now from Colonial, it is the Beverley D Stakes. It's a grade 2 event going for a $500,000 purse race for fillies, mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. 6 horses are going 1,900 meters or a mile 3/16 on the outer turf course. Going to take here as a top selection the number 4-horse Charlene's Dream. I'm going to go 4-3-5-2 in the superfecta. 4-3-5-2 super. Top selection of horse, Charlene's Dream. This 4-year-old filly by Curabon here. And Moser Jr. trains. Javier Castellano gets the mounts. The horse's most recent race came in the Anchorage at Churchill. Mile on the 8th on the 29th of June. And he finished fifth by 2.25 lengths. From a wide trip, he left to get somewhat good position, but then he just kind of yielded out of it. The better horses on the day just got to him. It wasn't his day to win. If they could slow it down on the front end, I think he could win. He ran two back in the mid julep at Churchill, mile 16th on the 1st June, and he finished second by 1/4 lengths, and he was sitting on the front end. The pinup Betty just caught this horse in lane, but she was fighting back. Not a bad race in the feet. Pinup Betty ran after that in the Anchorage and took off clear, so, got beat by a better horse on the day. But for this horse running back in 2 weeks, I thought it was quite impressive also. 2 weeks prior, she ran at Pimlico, mile 16th at Galloway, winning by 2.25 lengths on the front and all throughout. Very pedestrian fractions. She came home clear driving away. That was a good race. And the Gulfstream Park, and then Dueling Ground Oaks at Kentucky Downs, mile 5/16 last September, finishing seventh by 5.25 lengths. She was on the front end, but then just completely hit the wall. She's training well Turfway, coming up in some class 7 to 2. I'm going to give her a shot on the ticket. I think the 3-horse Beach Bomb for Brand Motion and Luis Saez could find a trip also. She had a very good place against a very tough competition in the New York Stakes at Saratoga over the mile 3/16 on a boggy turf course about 2 months ago. Prior to that in the Sheepshead at Bay, she had a very good place over a longer trip, which I think just wasn't a the extra furlong and a half that day from the previous race. I just don't think she appreciated that. I think Beleza just is a better horse, but she won the Orchid, getting everything her own way in the front end. I do think she's a horse a little bit better cutting back and trip to a mile 3/16. She's back at it again today in her own backyard. I think she could win. Let's use her on the ticket. But to recap my selection for the 10th now from Colonial, it's the Beverly D. We're going to take the 4-horse Charlene's Dream, give kudos to the 3-horse Beach Bomb, 4-3-5-2 Super, 4-3 in the multi-race. The featured 11th race now from Colonial, it is the Arlington Million. It's a grade 1 event going for a $1 million purse, race for 3-year-olds and upwards. Field of 8 horses going 2,000 meters or a mile and a quarter here in the Million. I'm going to go with the number 5 horse here, Cairo. I'm going to go 5-8-6-1 in the superfecta, 5-8-6-1 Super. Top selection of 5-horse Cairo. This 5-year-old horse by Quality Road. Alice Haynes trains. Ben Curtis gets the mount. Ran the horse most recently in the Group 1 Queen Anne Stakes at Royal Ascot. 1 mile fast ground 17th of June, and she finished third by 1/3 lengths that day. And she sat back early. She was gaining some ground late. She was 100 to 1 at post time, but she outran her odds. She got down the race course well. Not the world's, not the the worst race in the world. I think refreshing here, getting an extra quarter of a mile, training here over this course the last few weeks. I think she could find a trip to win and really improve off that race. She ran two back at Chester, a mile and a quarter in the Huxley Stakes, and she had a very good place by 1.5 lengths at 40-1 that day. And she was with him early on a very speed favoring track. The Foxes, who just caught her late as just slightly gamed her out to the wire, but she got down the race course well, or he got down the race course well for a start of the year in the UK. He was running in the UAE prior to that over the winter, where he was running okay. He actually ran an okay sixth in behind Nations Run in Singspiel, and then the Dubai Millennium over the mile and quarter. The last time he ran over this flat mile and quarter, he had a very good place behind First Conquest, where he's with them early on. He just couldn't get there late, which he just got outgained by a better horse in the day, but he ran his heart out. He hasn't won in quite a few seasons, but if you look at some of the horses he's been facing as of recently, they've been very tough horses. Stepping down in class 7-2, I think is a very likely winner. I think the 8 horse interrogation for John Velasquez and should win also. Seems every few months that they go around with the jockeys from get a different rider for this horse. I think Kendrick's ridden this horse the best. He ran last year's Million, where he had a very good place by Nation's Pride, who just had to jump on him late. But this horse, he got down the race course well. This year, he ran the Manhattan a few weeks ago at Saratoga, where he closed up well. Dieter Manistic just had the jump on him. Came back to win the 4-star Dave last week in the Saratoga. But this horse, he ran terrifically that day. His Turf Classic just was a bit of a traffic trip where he just never really got going. But in the Makers Market, he ran terrifically behind Carl Spackler, and he finished off the season last year well in the Red Smith. Back to a mile and a quarter, training well. It looks like he could get his own form pack. I'll give him a shot here at 8-5 in the Million, but and it's going to be exciting also seeing, Mystic Dan stepping on turf. I think he has a slight chance here on the ticket, so I'd use him on the pick 4, but it's going to be a very exciting Million. But to recap my selection for the 11th from Colonial, it is the grade 1 Arlington Million. Going to take the 5-horse Cairo, give kudos to the 8-horse Interrogation, 5861 Super, 5-8 in the multi-race. So good luck to all. Please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5. Good luck, everyone.